Chapter 27. Qishao. Zhang Xi hands crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. The first person Han Wai Imo called out after he was injured was you. Do you know him? Qishao didn't look up, resting his forehead on his hand. I don't know him. Do you have any clues about his death? Zhang Xi hands pressed on. Qishao fell silent, instead examining the massive sword on Han Wai Imo's body. It had an ancient design, resembling a finely crafted piece of art, scarred from countless battles. But who in this era would wield such a sword in combat? Qishao, I'm asking you a question. Zhang Xihan's tone was impatient. Are you going to explain anything? What do I need to explain? Qishao replied. Are you implying I killed Han Waiimo? Whether you're the murderer or not, you should at least say something to clear your name. Right? Qishao remained quiet and began to draw the sword. Hey? Officer Li rushed over. Qishao, regardless of whether you're the murderer, we must preserve the crime scene. Otherwise what? Qishao interrupted. Would it be easier for you to lose evidence when the police arrive? Officer Li was at a loss for words. Right now, whether he could leave alive was uncertain. Seeing Officer Li's silence, Qishao gripped the sword tightly and pulled it out of the ground with all his strength. Zhao Jiajin approached to help and soon realized the sword was heavier than he imagined. The pitch-black sword was likely made of some heavy metal, weighing around 150 pounds, equivalent to a strong adult man. Gasping for breath, Qishao threw the sword to the ground with a loud clatter. After a moment, once his breathing stabilized, he spoke to Zhang Xihan's lawyer Zhang. Let me clarify. This iron sword is over a person long and weighs more than 100 pounds. You suspect that I lifted this sword and quietly killed the immobile Han Waiimo at dawn, then deeply embedded it into the ground. Zhang Xihan pursed his lips, looking troubled. Before that, to avoid detection, I had this iron sword hidden in my pocket. Right? Qishao asked again. Officer Li sensed the tension rising and stepped in to ease the situation. Qishao, if you didn't kill Han Waiimo, why are you so intent on pulling out the sword? Qishao ignored Zhang Xihan's and instead looked down at the blood-soaked sword. He examined it closely, shook his head, and turned it over. Sure enough, 3 small characters were engraved on the hilt, Kai-Hi-Jian. Among Han Waiimo's previous words, there was little useful information. It seemed he had been trying to accept some truth, but never figured it out before he died. The only thing Qishao retained was the name Kai-Hi-Jian. This sword is called Kai-Hi-Jian. Zhao Jiajin asked from the side. Qishao gently stroked his chin, murmuring. These 3 characters were on Han Waiimo's other side, meaning he shouldn't have known the sword's name when he was pierced. But why did he mention Kai-Hi-Jian? I think your reasoning is quite offbeat, Officer Li said, shaking his head. Why care about the name of a murder weapon? Shouldn't we focus on the cause of Han Waiimo's death? Qishao glanced at Officer Li and continued. Han Waiimo was stabbed when it was bright out. Even if he was sleeping, a wound like that would have forced him to open his eyes. Theoretically, he should have seen the killer. Yet he said nothing about the killer's identity, only repeated Kai-Hi-Jian twice. Isn't that strange? That he called your name, Xiao Ran said quietly from the side. Regardless of the sword, Han Waiimo did call out your name first. So? Qishao asked. So you're the murderer. Zhao Ran's voice trembled as she hid behind Officer Li, afraid to look at Qishao. Qishao didn't argue, but stared at Xiao Ran, seemingly assessing whether she was the true murderer or just naive. And our companion is dead. Yet you show no sorrow, calmly analyzing everything. You must be a liar. What good is your analysis? Xiao Ran exclaimed, almost in tears. Who would believe you? Sorrow, Qishao frowned, as if struggling to comprehend. Are you saying I should grieve for someone I met just a day ago? Your cold-bloodedness is why I say you're the murderer. Xiao Ran's voice rose. Weren't you leaving last night? Why did you stay here overnight? If you think about it, you must have stayed to kill. At that moment, Qishao understood. The woman before him might not be the killer, but she was certainly foolish. She had shouted similar words earlier about not trusting this liar. For her, logic meant nothing. She only believed what she wanted. Zhao Jiajin could no longer hold back and said to Zhao Ran, "Hey, silly girl, if you don't want to think, then don't interrupt others. I think the liar's analysis makes sense. But you three are good people," Xiao Ran retorted. "Feeling wrong. Someone died here, and you three are the most suspicious. Right? What if I'm silly? Being silly doesn't mean I do bad things." Her words targeted not only Qi Zhao, but also Zhao Jiajin and Tian Tian nearby. The three of them weren't exactly good people. Qi Zhao nodded, replying, "You're right." He abandoned the examination of the body and the sword, slowly rising. "There's no need to continue. I killed him." Everyone present reacted with blank faces. Only Zhao Ran looked a bit excited. See, he admitted it himself. He just rambled on to divert attention with the sword's name. Officer Li furrowed his brows, deep in thought. "Hey, liar," Zhao Jiajin said. "Confused? Even if you admit it, who will believe you? It's impossible for this sword to not make noise, even if you and I moved it together." Tan Zhao waved his hand and walked out of the convenience store. "It doesn't matter. It's only 10 days until the deadline. What does it matter if I'm labeled a murderer? Besides, I don't enjoy arguing with foolish people." Hearing this, Zhao Jiajin rolled his eyes and followed. Then Xian Tian joined them, having decided from the start to follow Qizhao and Zhao Jiajin, leaving no reason to stay behind. Lin Ting glanced back at Officer Li, as if wanting to say something, but she shook her head and walked away. The remaining 8 split into 2 groups. The 4 left behind had complex expressions. Zhao Ran seemed relieved. "Great. Those bad-looking people finally left." "Xiao Ran, I think we forgot something," Dr. Zhao said quietly to Xiao Ran. Xiao ran out in cold to the 4. "Stop." He turned coldly, unsure of what she wanted. "Did you forget something?" Xiao Ran asked. "The Dao?" "Dao? Exactly. The 4 Dao we risked our lives to win back as 9 people. You can't take them all away."